Rancher took the cursed, Apache girl that the townsfolk hated, and his life changed forever. Samuel McAllister had always been a man of solitude. His ranch sat on the edge of the town of Red River, a dusty settlement surrounded by rolling plains and distant mountains. Life there was harsh, but Samuel was built for it. He knew how to read the weather by the way the grass bent in the wind. He could tell when a horse was sick just by the way it shifted its weight. Hard work was his language, and the land responded to him as if it understood. Most townsfolk respected him for it, though they rarely crossed the threshold of his property. Samuel preferred it that way. The town itself was small, and its people were quick to form opinions and even quicker to spread rumors. There was a certain comfort in knowing everyone thought they understood the world, but they did not understand Samuel, and more importantly, they did not understand fear or loss. It was late one October evening when Samuel first saw her. He was riding along the edge of the creek that bordered his ranch, checking the fence lines and ensuring no livestock had wandered off. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the dry earth. That's when he noticed a small figure crouched among the reeds near the water. At first, he thought it might be a stray child from town, perhaps a runaway seeking a place to hide. But there was something different about her. She didn't move quickly or panic when she saw him. Instead, she remained perfectly still, almost as if she were part of the shadows themselves. Her hair was dark, cascading over her shoulders in tangles, and her eyes, Samuel could see them even in the dim light, were wide and cautious, like a wild animal learning to trust. "Hello there," Samuel called softly, not wanting to startle her. She flinched, stepping back slightly. "Please don't come closer," she whispered. Her voice was barely audible, and there was an edge of fear in it that Samuel recognized immediately. It was fear born of survival, not of mischief. Samuel stopped his horse a few feet away and dismounted. He kept his hands visible, showing he meant no harm. "I won't hurt you," he said gently. "Are you lost?" The girl shook her head slowly. Her eyes flicked toward the town in the distance. I can't go back there." Samuel frowned. He had heard rumors about a girl who had been living on the outskirts, a child whose family had been killed in a skirmish years ago. The townsfolk said she was cursed, unlucky, dangerous even. They whispered behind her back whenever her name came up, though no one actually knew her story. "I see," Samuel said. "Well, you're welcome to come to my ranch. You can rest, have something to eat. No one will bother you there." The girl hesitated, her body tense like a coiled spring. They'll say bad things about you." Samuel smiled faintly. He had heard plenty of bad things about himself, too. "Let them talk," he said simply. "I've lived long enough to know words can't hurt me. Only actions matter." For a long moment the girl studied him. Finally, with a small nod, she stepped out from the shadows. Her movements were careful, almost cautious, as if every step was measured to avoid drawing attention. Samuel led her slowly back to the ranch, giving her time to adjust to the strange surroundings. When they arrived, Samuel offered her a seat by the fire in his cabin. The walls were simple, built from rough-hewn timber, but it was warm and safe. He handed her a bowl of stew and some bread. She ate slowly, glancing around as if half expecting someone to burst in and tell her to leave. "What's your name?" Samuel asked after a while. "Naeli," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Nice to meet you, Naeli," he said. "I'm Samuel, you don't have to be afraid here." She looked at him, studying his face. Do you really mean that?" Samuel nodded. "I do. You've been through enough. You deserve a chance to rest, at least for tonight." For the first time since he met her, Naeli allowed herself a small smile. It was hesitant, almost fragile, but it was there. Samuel felt a strange warmth in his chest. He didn't know why he was suddenly so protective of this girl he had just met, but he knew one thing: he couldn't turn her away. The night was quiet, broken only by the soft crackle of the fire and the occasional rustle of the wind outside. Samuel and Naeli sat together, the silence slowly turning into a comfortable presence. He could sense her fear slowly easing, replaced by a cautious curiosity. "Why do they say I'm cursed?" Naeli asked after a while, her voice trembling. Samuel considered the question. "People are afraid of what they don't understand. They've probably never had someone like you around, so they make up stories. That doesn't mean it's true." She nodded slowly as if trying to believe him. They don't want me in the town. They say bad things will happen if I stay. And yet here you are," Samuel said gently. "And nothing bad has happened yet, has it?" She shook her head. "No, not yet." Samuel smiled faintly. "Then maybe it's time to see what really happens without the fear. You don't have to listen to them anymore." For a moment, Naeli looked at the fire, watching the flames dance. Samuel could see the weight of her past in the way she held herself, in the cautious way she moved. But he also saw something else, a spark of resilience, a determination that refused to be broken by the cruelty of others. That night, Samuel made a decision that would change both their lives forever. He would take her in, not out of pity, but out of a sense of justice and compassion. Naeli would have a home, a place where she could be safe, where she could learn to trust again. And in return, she would teach him lessons he had never imagined, lessons about courage, loyalty, and the strength of the human spirit. As he watched her drift off to sleep by the fire, Samuel felt a mixture of hope and apprehension. The town would not understand his choice. They would whisper and gossip, and some might even try to make trouble, but he didn't care. He had faced the harshness of the land and the cruelty of men before. He could handle whatever came next. The morning came slowly, painting the ranch in shades of gold and amber. Naeli awoke to the sound of horses in the barn and the smell of fresh coffee brewing. Samuel was already outside, checking the fences. He waved her over and she ran to join him, her steps lighter than the day before. "You'll need to help me today," Samuel said with a grin. "The cows won't feed themselves." Naeli laughed softly, a sound that was rare and precious. For the first time in years, she felt like she belonged somewhere. The fear that had clung to her like a shadow began to lift, replaced by a fragile sense of hope. As they worked together, Samuel realized that taking her in was not just about saving her. It was about giving both of them a chance to heal, to grow, and to discover something neither had expected. That even in a harsh and unforgiving world, kindness and trust could create a life worth living. By the time the sun dipped behind the mountains again, Samuel and Naeli had formed a bond that no rumor, no fear, and no superstition could break. And though the town would continue to whisper and judge, the ranch became a place of refuge, a place where a so-called cursed girl could find her strength, and a solitary rancher could discover the true meaning of family. That night Samuel sat by the fire, watching Naeli sleep. He didn't know what challenges lay ahead. The town would test them, nature would test them, and life itself would throw obstacles in their path. But he knew one thing for certain. This little girl, this child who had been labeled as cursed, had already changed his life forever. And in the quiet, golden glow of the firelight, he felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. The next morning, the sun rose over the ranch like a golden promise, painting the land in shades of warmth and life. Samuel and Naeli moved together through the fields, checking fences, feeding the animals, and tending to the chores that kept the ranch alive. For Naeli, this was the first time she had a routine, a place where her work mattered, and where her presence did not draw whispers or fearful glances. She learned quickly, observing Samuel with quiet determination, mimicking the way he moved, the care with which he handled the horses and cattle, and the patience he showed the land itself. But life outside the ranch was different. The town of Red River had not forgotten the arrival of the girl whom they called Cursed. As Samuel and Naeli moved about their day, word of her presence spread like wildfire. By mid-morning, Curious and cautious glances followed them whenever they passed near the town's main street. Children peeked from behind shop counters, and mothers whispered to one another, eyes wide with fear or disapproval. Some townsfolk shook their heads, muttering that Samuel had gone too far, that he was inviting misfortune upon himself. Samuel noticed it immediately. Even as he passed the general store, the owner, Mr. Perkins, barely nodded to him. It was a simple gesture, yet Samuel could feel the weight behind it, a judgment he could neither escape nor ignore. He had anticipated some suspicion, but this was more than that. The town's fear was deep-rooted, built from years of rumors, superstition, and misunderstanding. "Don't worry about them," Samuel said to Naeli as they returned to the ranch. "People fear what they do not understand. It does not mean they are right." Naeli, who had begun to feel a sense of safety with Samuel, nodded silently. Still, she could not help but feel a pang of sadness for the town's rejection. She had dreamed of being accepted somewhere, of finding friends her own age, but those dreams had been met with suspicion. The first few days were a delicate balance. Samuel focused on his work, ensuring the ranch ran smoothly, while Naeli helped with smaller tasks, collecting eggs, mending fences, and learning the routines of ranch life. She was eager to prove herself, to show that she was not the harbinger of bad luck that the townsfolk claimed she was. One afternoon, as the sun climbed high and the heat shimmered across the open plains, a group of children from the town appeared near the edge of the ranch. They were timid, whispering among themselves and staring at Naeli with a mixture of fear and curiosity. "Don't go near her," one of them shouted suddenly, breaking the silence. Samuel stepped forward, his presence calm but firm. "There's nothing to fear," he said, his voice carrying across the open field. "She's just a girl like you. Treat her kindly or don't treat her at all." The children hesitated, glancing at one another. They were used to listening to adults, to following the rules of the town, yet they could see the calm certainty in Samuel's eyes. Slowly, they edged closer, curiosity winning over fear, but not without hesitation. Naeli watched them quietly, unsure how to respond. She had long since learned to keep her distance from others, to avoid being hurt by their words or actions. "Hi," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. The children blinked in surprise. Her voice was gentle, sincere, lacking the darkness they had been warned about. A small boy, braver than the rest, stepped forward. "Are you really not cursed?" he asked, his eyes wide. Naeli shook her head. "I'm not cursed. I just had a hard time before, that's all." The boy seemed to relax slightly, though the other children still watched her warily. Samuel smiled. It was a small victory, but an important one. It was the first time someone from the town had engaged with Naeli without fear, without judgment. Despite these small moments of hope, life at the ranch was not without its challenges. The townsfolk's gossip reached Samuel in subtle ways. Supplies were delayed. Some neighbors avoided helping when needed, and Samuel could sense an underlying tension whenever he ventured into town. Yet he remained steadfast. He would not allow the whispers of the fearful to influence the life he was building with Naeli. Naeli, too, faced her own struggles. The scars of her past were not only emotional but also social. She had learned to survive in solitude, and now she had to navigate the unfamiliar world of trust and companionship. At times, she would retreat to the edge of the fields, watching the town in silence, feeling the weight of rejection pressing against her chest. Samuel noticed these moments and would quietly join her, offering words of reassurance, teaching her that patience and perseverance could overcome even the deepest fear. One evening, as the sun set in brilliant streaks of orange and pink, Samuel and Naeli were working in the barn. The animals were restless, sensing the change in weather. Samuel explained to Naeli how to calm the horses, how to move gently and predictably, and how to read their moods. She listened intently, absorbing every word, every gesture. "You've got away with them," Samuel said, observing her. They trust you, and that's not easy to earn. Nayeli looked down, a shy smile playing on her lips. I've had to be careful always, maybe that helps. Samuel chuckled softly. Perhaps, but it's more than that. You have a kind heart, Nayeli, that's what makes the difference. As the days turned into weeks, the bond between Samuel and Nayeli deepened. They shared meals, stories, and moments of quiet reflection. Nayeli began to speak more openly about her past, sharing memories of her family and the hardships she had faced. Samuel listened without judgment, offering guidance and encouragement. In turn, he shared stories of his own life, of the challenges he had faced as a rancher, and of the loneliness he had endured. Together, they discovered that despite their differences, they could find understanding and companionship in one another. However, the town remained a source of tension. Rumors persisted, and some townsfolk were openly hostile. Samuel found himself defending Nayeli more than once, standing firm against those who sought to judge her without knowing her story. He refused to allow fear and superstition to dictate their lives. One afternoon, as Samuel repaired a broken fence, he noticed a group of men from the town approaching. Nayeli hid behind him instinctively, her body tense with fear. The men stopped a few feet away, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Samuel, one of them said, his tone cautious, "We've heard you've taken in that girl, the one they say is cursed." Samuel stood tall, his hands steady on the fence post. "I've taken in a girl who needed a home," he said firmly. "She is not cursed. She is a child, and she deserves kindness, not fear." The men exchanged glances, unsure how to respond. Samuel's unwavering confidence and the calm presence of Nayeli standing beside him left little room for argument. Slowly they nodded, some muttering apologies under their breath before walking away. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky turned to shades of purple and gold, Nayeli sat by the fire, her hands folded in her lap. She looked up at Samuel, a mixture of gratitude and wonder in her eyes. "Do you think they'll ever accept me?" she asked softly. Samuel considered her question carefully. "Some will eventually, others may never understand, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that you are safe here, and that we know the truth about who you are." Nayeli nodded, her heart feeling lighter than it had in years. She was beginning to believe that perhaps she could have a life beyond fear and rejection. She could have friends, a purpose, and a place to belong. As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Samuel and Nayeli sat together in silence, listening to the gentle sounds of the ranch, the rustle of the wind through the grass, the soft lowing of cattle settling for the night, and the distant hoot of an owl. In that quiet moment, they felt a sense of peace, a rare and precious feeling that neither had known for a long time. Samuel knew the road ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges, misunderstandings, and moments of doubt. But he also knew that together, he and Nayeli could face whatever came their way. They had found trust, companionship, and a shared sense of purpose, and that was stronger than any fear or superstition the town could throw at them. For Nayeli, the days were slowly transforming from a life of hiding and fear into one of hope and possibility. She was learning that the world was not entirely cruel, that there were people who could be trusted, and that she had a place where she truly belonged. And for Samuel, the girl who had appeared at the edge of his land had brought a light into his life that he had not realized was missing. She had reminded him of the importance of compassion, the courage it takes to stand against fear, and the joy of opening one's heart to another. Together they faced the town's suspicion with quiet strength, and in doing so they were building something more important than a ranch. They were building a home, a sanctuary, and a life filled with hope, trust, and the promise of better days ahead. Days turned into weeks, and life at the ranch settled into a rhythm. Samuel and Nayeli had become a team, moving together across the fields, checking fences, tending the animals, and managing the daily tasks that kept the ranch running. Each day, Naeli grew stronger, more confident, and more at ease with the routines of ranch life. Samuel watched her carefully, noticing the way she handled the horses, her gentle way with the cattle, and the determination in her eyes that refused to be broken by fear or doubt. Even with the routine, challenges were never far away. The town of Red River still whispered behind their hands, spreading rumors about the girl they still called Cursed. Supplies from the town came slower, sometimes not at all, and a few neighbors avoided lending a hand when Samuel needed help. It was clear that many people still distrusted Naeli, judging her based on stories and superstition rather than on who she truly was. But Samuel remained steadfast. He refused to let fear or prejudice dictate their lives. He believed in actions over words, and he trusted in Naeli's character. Slowly, Naeli began to see the truth of his words. She realized that trust could exist, that kindness could overcome fear, and that a person's worth was measured by their heart and deeds, not by rumors or whispers. One morning, Samuel and Naeli were checking the northern pasture when they spotted a calf that had wandered close to the edge of the woods. Naeli's eyes widened, and she moved cautiously toward it. Samuel followed, observing how she approached the animal, gently speaking to it and slowly guiding it back to safety. Her patience and care reminded Samuel of a younger version of himself, someone who had learned to respect the land and the creatures upon it. "You're a natural," Samuel said, his voice full of pride. "You don't just work hard, you understand them." Naeli smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest. "I like helping," she said softly. It feels good to do something right." Their bond had grown beyond simple companionship. Naeli had come to rely on Samuel's guidance, and he, in turn, found himself inspired by her courage and determination. The isolation of the ranch no longer felt lonely. Instead, it was a place of learning, growth, and shared purpose. Yet, life was not without tension. The town remained wary, and some of its residents began to test Samuel's patience. One afternoon, a group of men arrived at the edge of the ranch, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. They had come to see the girl for themselves to determine if the rumors were true. Samuel met them calmly, standing tall with Naeli beside him. "She is a child," he said firmly. "She is not cursed. She is learning just like any of your children would. You have nothing to fear from her." The men exchanged uncertain glances, their eyes flicking toward Naeli. She stood quietly, her posture straight, her eyes meeting theirs without fear. Slowly, the men nodded, muttering under their breath before leaving. It was a small victory, but an important one. Naeli had faced the judgment of the town and had remained true to herself, earning a measure of respect in the process. As the weeks passed, Naeli began to explore more of the ranch on her own, learning the layout of the fields, the behavior of the animals, and the rhythms of the land. She discovered a small grove of trees near a hidden stream, a place where she could sit quietly and reflect. Samuel often found her there, her eyes focused on the water as she sketched patterns in the dirt with a stick or hummed softly to herself. "You've found a good spot," Samuel said one afternoon, joining her by the stream. "It's peaceful," Naeli replied. "I like to think when I'm here." Samuel nodded, understanding. The ranch could be harsh and demanding, but it also offered moments of serenity and beauty. He realized that Naeli had brought a new perspective to his life, helping him see the land in a way he had long forgotten. Their days were filled with work and learning, but also with small joys. Naeli discovered a love for painting, using natural pigments to capture the colors of the land. Samuel found himself smiling more often, enjoying her laughter and the stories she shared about her memories and dreams. They shared meals, long walks, and quiet evenings by the fire, building a life together that was both simple and rich in meaning. However, the town's skepticism still lingered. Samuel knew that the path ahead would require patience and courage. He encouraged Naeli to stay strong, reminding her that the opinions of others could not define her worth. Slowly, she began to understand. Trust was not given freely, but it could be earned through kindness, courage, and persistence. One day, as Samuel repaired a fence near the barn, a sudden storm rolled in from the mountains. Dark clouds gathered quickly, and strong winds swept across the fields. The animals grew restless, and Naomi ran to help, her hands steady and sure as she guided the cattle to safety. Samuel watched her with pride, realizing that she had grown stronger and more capable than he had ever imagined. "You've done well," he said once the animals were safe. "You handled that storm better than I could have hoped." Naomi smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment. "I'm learning," she said simply. Their bond had become unshakable, forged through shared work, challenges, and quiet moments of trust. Naomi was no longer the timid girl who had arrived at the edge of the creek. She was confident, strong, and capable, a child who had faced hardship and emerged with courage and determination. Even as the town's whispers continued, Samuel and Naomi found strength in each other. They discovered that true friendship and trust could overcome fear, and that actions mattered more than words. They had built a life that was grounded in honesty, kindness, and resilience, and it was a life that would continue to grow stronger with each passing day. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Samuel and Naomi sat on a hill overlooking the ranch. The animals were settled for the night, the wind had calmed, and the land seemed to breathe in a quiet, steady rhythm. "Do you think they'll ever truly accept me?" Naomi asked softly, her eyes reflecting the fading light. Samuel placed a hand on her shoulder, steady and reassuring. "Some will eventually," he said. "Others may never understand, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that you are here, you are safe, and you know the truth about who you are. That is stronger than any fear they can feel." Naomi nodded, feeling the weight of his words settle in her heart. She understood that acceptance was not always immediate, that it could take time for people to see the truth. But she also understood that she had found something far more important, a place where she belonged, and someone who believed in her without doubt. As night fell and the stars began to appear in the clear sky, Naomi leaned against Samuel, feeling a sense of peace and security she had never known before. She knew the road ahead would have challenges, but she also knew that together, they could face anything. The bond they had formed was stronger than fear, stronger than prejudice, and it was a bond that would guide them through the days to come. And so, life at the ranch continued, filled with work, learning, and the quiet joys of trust and companionship. Naomi grew in strength and confidence, and Samuel found a renewed sense of purpose and hope. Together they faced the town's suspicion with patience and courage, and in doing so, they built a life that was rich in meaning, love, and resilience. A life that neither had imagined before, but one that they would cherish forever. One morning, the ranch awoke under an unusually hot sun. The sky was bright, almost blinding, and the air carried a strange stillness. Samuel noticed it immediately as he stepped outside. The usual breeze that kept the dust swirling lightly across the plains was absent. The animals were restless, pawing at the ground and calling softly to one another. Even the birds were unusually quiet, perched silently on the fence posts as if sensing the change. "Something's coming," Samuel murmured, his eyes scanning the distant horizon. He knew the land better than anyone in Red River, and he trusted his instincts. Naomi noticed his concern and moved to stand beside him. "What is it?" she asked, her voice quiet but steady. "I'm not sure," Samuel replied, "but we need to be ready for anything. The land can change quickly, and we have to be prepared." They spent the morning tending the animals with extra care, checking the fences, and making sure the water troughs were full. Samuel explained each step to Naomi, showing her how to anticipate the behavior of the animals and respond calmly to their fears. Naomi followed his instructions carefully, her hands steady, her eyes alert. She was learning more than just ranch work. She was learning to trust herself, to make decisions in moments of uncertainty, and to act with courage even when she was afraid. By midday, the heat had grown intense, and the air shimmered with tension. Samuel noticed dark clouds gathering on the horizon, moving faster than expected. He felt a knot of worry tighten in his chest. "Looks like a storm," he said, "but it's coming faster than usual. We need to move the animals to safety immediately." Naomi nodded and sprang into action. Together, they guided the cows toward the central pasture, speaking softly to calm the frightened animals. The horses were more difficult. They sensed the storm coming and were hesitant to move. Naomi approached them slowly, her hands gentle as she stroked their necks and murmured soothing words. Samuel watched, impressed by her calm determination. "You've got away with them," he said, his voice carrying over the low rumble of the wind. "They trust you." Naomi smiled faintly, though her eyes remained serious. "I want to help," she said. "I don't want anything to get hurt." As they worked, the wind began to pick up, bending the tall grass and sending dust swirling across the fields. Dark clouds now loomed overhead, and Samuel could hear the distant roll of thunder. He knew they had little time before the storm would hit with full force. Suddenly, a flash of lightning lit the sky, followed almost immediately by a loud crack of thunder. The animals panicked, scattering in all directions. Samuel shouted over the roar of the wind, "Naomi, stay with me." She nodded, gripping his hand for a moment before letting go to help guide a frightened calf back to safety. Samuel moved quickly, his eyes scanning the field for any animal in danger. Together, they worked with steady determination, calming the animals and bringing them to the shelter of the barn. Naomi's voice was clear and firm, giving instructions to the cattle and the horses alike, and the animals responded to her guidance. By the time the storm hit fully, rain began to pour in heavy sheets, soaking the ground and turning the earth into mud. The wind howled across the plains, bending the trees and shaking the fences. Samuel and Naomi took shelter in the barn, checking each animal and making sure none were injured. The sound of the storm was deafening, but within the barn there was order and calm, thanks to their efforts. "You did well," Samuel said, placing a hand on Naomi's shoulder. "I don't know what I would have done without you." Naomi looked at him, her eyes wide with both fear and pride. "We did it together," she said. "I couldn't have done it alone." The storm raged for hours, and Samuel and Naomi worked tirelessly, attending to each animal, ensuring their safety, and repairing any damage caused by the wind. The barn roof creaked under the force of the rain, and water seeped through in places, but they did not let themselves be distracted. Their focus was on protecting the lives that depended on them, and their determination never wavered. As night fell, the storm finally began to subside. The rain slowed to a gentle drizzle and the wind eased, leaving the ranch soaked but intact. Samuel and Naomi were exhausted, their clothes drenched and their bodies aching from hours of effort. Yet there was a quiet satisfaction in their hearts, a sense of accomplishment and relief that they had faced the storm together and emerged stronger. The next morning, the sun rose over the ranch, casting sparkling reflections on puddles and damp grass. Samuel and Naomi surveyed the damage, assessing the fences, checking the animals and planning repairs. The storm had left its mark, but nothing had been lost that could not be fixed. As they worked, a few townsfolk began to appear, curious about the aftermath of the storm. They had seen Samuel and Naomi working tirelessly, guiding the animals and protecting the ranch, and their skepticism began to soften. One by one, they approached, offering help and apologies for their earlier judgment. Samuel accepted their offers graciously, never holding grudges, and Naomi, too, responded with kindness and patience. The town began to see her not as a cursed girl, but as a capable, brave, and caring young person. Slowly, the walls of fear and superstition began to crumble. In the days that followed, The bond between Samuel and Naeli grew even stronger. They had faced a challenge that tested their courage, patience, and determination, and they had emerged with a renewed sense of trust in one another. Naeli had proven not only her strength and bravery, but also her ability to act with wisdom and care in the face of fear. Samuel watched her closely, feeling a deep pride and admiration. "You've grown so much," he said one evening as they repaired a broken fence together. "Not just in skill, but in courage. You've faced fear and uncertainty and come through stronger than ever." Naeli smiled, her eyes shining in the fading light. "I learned from you," she said softly. "You taught me how to trust myself, how to stay calm, and how to care for others. I'm not the same girl who came here weeks ago." Samuel nodded, feeling a warmth in his chest that he had not felt in years. Naeli had changed his life as much as he had changed hers. She had brought light, hope, and a new perspective to his world, reminding him that courage and kindness could overcome fear and prejudice. Their lives at the ranch continued, filled with work, learning, and quiet joys. They faced challenges, both from nature and from the lingering skepticism of the town, but they faced them together, strengthened by their bond and guided by their shared values of trust, courage, and compassion. One evening, as the sun set behind the distant mountains, casting the land in warm shades of gold and orange, Samuel and Naeli sat together on the porch of the cabin, watching the animals settle for the night. The storm had passed, leaving behind a sense of renewal and possibility. The ranch was a place of life, hope, and resilience, and they both knew that together they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. "Do you think we can handle anything now?" Naeli asked softly, her eyes reflecting the fading light. Samuel smiled, placing a hand on hers. "Yes," he said. "Together there is nothing we cannot face. We have learned to trust ourselves, to care for others, and to stay strong in the face of fear. That is the greatest strength of all." Naeli nodded, feeling a sense of peace and confidence she had never known before. She understood that life would always have challenges, but she also knew that with courage, patience, and trust, she could overcome anything. And so, the ranch became not just a place of work and survival, but a place of growth, learning, and shared strength. Samuel and Naeli had faced the storm, protected what mattered most, and emerged stronger together. The bond between them was unshakable, a testament to the power of trust, courage, and compassion in the face of fear. The town, too, began to see the truth of who Naeli was, a brave, capable, and kind-hearted young girl. Slowly, prejudice and fear gave way to respect and admiration. Samuel and Naeli had proven that actions mattered more than words, that courage and kindness could change hearts, and that even in a world filled with fear and misunderstanding, hope and trust could prevail. The weeks following the storm brought a quiet transformation to the ranch. The land, soaked and refreshed, seemed to breathe with a new sense of life. The animals moved more calmly, and the fields glistened under the morning sun. Samuel and Naeli continued their daily routines, tending to the fences, checking the livestock, and ensuring that everything was in order. But there was a change in the air, not just from the recent storm, but from the slow shift in the town's attitude toward Naeli. For the first time since she had arrived, Naeli began to notice the subtle differences. Children from the town, once hesitant to approach, now waved from a distance or shyly asked questions about the animals. A few brave families stopped by the ranch to offer small gifts, fresh eggs, milk, or bread, as a gesture of goodwill. Even the local storekeeper, Mr. Perkins, smiled at her when she visited to fetch supplies. The whispers of fear and superstition that had followed her for so long were beginning to fade, replaced by curiosity, respect, and cautious admiration. Samuel observed these changes with quiet satisfaction. He had never sought approval from the town, but he knew that Naeli deserved to be seen for who she truly was. "People are slow to change," he said one morning as they repaired a fence together, but actions have a way of speaking louder than words. You've shown them your heart, Naeli, and now they are beginning to see it. Naeli smiled, a small, shy expression that spoke volumes. She had grown so much since the day Samuel had found her near the creek. She no longer feared the world around her as she once had. Instead, she carried herself with a quiet confidence, aware of her own strength and resilience. She had learned that kindness and courage could overcome fear, and that the world, though often harsh, could also be filled with compassion and hope. One afternoon, as Samuel worked in the barn, Naeli ventured toward the town to fetch supplies. She walked with steady steps, her head held high, and her heart full of both anticipation and apprehension. The townsfolk paused to watch her pass, their expressions a mixture of surprise and respect. They had seen her bravery during the storm, her gentle care for the animals, and the determination she showed each day on the ranch. Slowly, their fear was giving way to understanding. A group of children approached her cautiously, their eyes wide with curiosity. "Are you really the girl who saved the animals during the storm?" one asked. Naeli nodded, a small smile on her lips. "I helped them," she said simply. "It wasn't just me. Samuel helped too." The children glanced at one another, then at her again, their expressions softening. Can we help on the ranch someday?" another asked. Naeli's smile grew. "Of course," she said. "You can come by any time." This small interaction marked a turning point. For the first time, Naeli felt a sense of belonging, not just on the ranch but within the community. She realized that courage, patience, and kindness had the power to change hearts, even those clouded by fear and superstition. Back at the ranch, Samuel watched her return, carrying a basket of supplies. Her steps were lighter than when she had first arrived in Red River. He felt a deep pride and a sense of joy he had not known in years. Naeli had grown into a young girl of strength, wisdom, and compassion, and she had brought a new light into his life as well. Over the following months, the bond between Samuel and Naeli deepened even further. They worked side by side, shared meals, and spent quiet evenings by the fire, talking about the past, the present, and the dreams they held for the future. Naeli began to learn more than just ranch work. She learned about the land, the animals, and the value of trust, patience, and persistence. Samuel, in turn, learned from her perspective, the courage to face fear, the ability to find hope in difficult times, and the joy of seeing the world through the eyes of someone who had endured so much, yet remained compassionate and kind. The town, slowly but surely, began to accept her. Families invited her to gatherings, neighbors stopped by for advice or help with chores, and even those who had once whispered behind her back began to speak to her openly. Naeli's bravery and kindness had proven more powerful than the rumors that had haunted her. She had shown the town that courage was not measured by words, but by actions, and that kindness could transform even the hardest hearts. One evening, as the sun set in brilliant shades of gold and pink, Samuel and Naeli sat on the porch of the cabin, overlooking the fields. The animals were calm, the fences repaired, and the land seemed at peace after the challenges it had faced. "Naeli," Samuel said softly, "look at how far you've come. You've faced fear, hardship, and doubt, and yet here you are, strong, kind, and brave. You've changed not just this ranch, but my life too." Naeli looked at him, her eyes glistening. "I never thought I could belong anywhere," she said quietly. "But here, with you, I've learned that home isn't just a place, it's people, trust, and love. You've given me all of that." Samuel nodded, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. "And you've given me something I didn't know I was missing," he said. "Hope, joy, and a reminder that courage and kindness can change lives." As the seasons passed, the ranch flourished under their care. The animals thrived, the fields grew lush, and the cabin became a warm and welcoming home. Naeli continued to learn and grow, developing skills that would serve her for a lifetime. She helped the town whenever she could, offering her knowledge of the land, animals, and nature. The townsfolk had come to see her not as a girl who brought bad luck, but as someone who brought strength, wisdom, and light. Samuel and Naeli often walked together through the fields at sunset, reflecting on how far they had come. They spoke of the past, acknowledging the hardships and fear, but also celebrating the growth and trust they had built. Naeli had become a symbol of resilience, courage, and kindness, a living example of how one person's actions could change the hearts and minds of many. The story of Naeli, the girl once called Cursed, spread quietly throughout the town, not as a tale of fear, but as a story of bravery, compassion, and transformation. Children spoke of her courage during the storm, adults admired her kindness and wisdom, and Samuel's steadfast belief in her became a testament to the power of trust and understanding. Years later, Naeli had grown into a strong, capable young woman, confident in her abilities and proud of her journey. The ranch remained a place of life, learning, and warmth, a home that symbolized hope and resilience. Samuel, no longer a solitary figure, had found a true companion and friend in Naeli. Together, they had faced fear, hardship, and doubt, and had emerged stronger, wiser, and more connected than ever. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains and painted the sky with brilliant colors, Naeli stood at the edge of the field, watching the animals graze peacefully. Samuel joined her, standing silently by her side. The land stretched out before them, calm and beautiful, a reflection of the journey they had taken together. "Do you remember the day you found me?" Naeli asked softly, turning to him with a smile. Samuel nodded, a warmth spreading through his chest. "I do," he said. "And I remember thinking that my life was about to change. I didn't know how much, but I knew something important had begun." Naeli's eyes glistened as she took a deep breath. "You gave me a home, trust, and hope. You helped me see that fear doesn't define us. We can choose courage, kindness, and love instead." Samuel smiled, feeling the truth of her words in his heart. "And you gave me the same thing, Naeli. You reminded me that life is richer when shared, that strength comes from kindness, and that courage can change everything." The ranch, the animals, and the land around them were quiet, bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun. The town, once filled with suspicion and fear, had begun to embrace the truth of Naeli's character. She was no longer the girl who had been called Cursed, but a young woman who had touched hearts, inspired courage, and transformed a community. Samuel and Naeli stood together, side by side, knowing that the bond they had formed was unbreakable. They had faced storms, both literal and figurative, emerged stronger, and created a life filled with trust, love, and hope. Their journey had been difficult, but it had brought them to a place of peace, belonging, and fulfillment that neither had imagined possible. And so, the ranch became more than just a home. It became a symbol of resilience, courage, and the transformative power of trust and kindness. Naeli, once called Cursed, had found her place in the world, and Samuel had discovered that life's greatest rewards come from opening one's heart to those who need it most. Together they had built a legacy that would last for years to come, a story of hope, strength, and the enduring power of compassion.